Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. We're happy you were able to make some time to visit with us today. My name is Laura Walker. I'm the Director of Business Development here at StrataCom, and I'll be joined by Ryan Counts and Rod Schmidt of Atlassian. So today's webinar is a demonstration of Jira Service Management. StrataCom has been a Cherwell partner for about the last decade, including through the Avanti purchase. And we're really excited about Jira Service Management as really the next step. We know you've got some different options. Stay with Cherwell for a while, consider Avanti's convergence offering, but we're really excited about what Atlassian is doing, their company culture, their big client base, and all the exciting things they've been doing with Jira Service Management. It really seems like that's where the innovation lies right now. We believe that's going to be the next big and upcoming product in ITSM. So we're excited to show you what they've built. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Rod Schmidt. But real quick first, we are recording today's session and we have it scheduled for 90 minutes. So if you have to drop at the top of the next hour, feel free to do so. We'll be sharing the recorded link out with everyone to view and to share with others on your team as well. All right, Rod, it's all yours.
Okay, go ahead one screen if you could, please, Laura. Perfect, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Rod Schmidt. I'm the ITSM Enterprise Advocate from Atlassian. Just a quick plug for StrataCom. I had worked for Cherwell previously for 6.5 years. StrataCom was my go-to partner. I'll do a quick infomercial for them. They did all my really successful implementations of Cherwell. And that's a lot of them. Ashley Furniture, they did Unify Super Value, Mystic Lake Casino, both large and small shops, complex and simple implementations. They did a great job for me. And I'm really excited that now that I've moved over to Atlassian, that they are still a great partner here for Atlassian. So Ryan, do you just want to say hi quick and tell them where you came from?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Rod. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ryan Counts. I'm a solution engineer here with Atlassian. Prior to Atlassian, I was also with Cherwell for a number of years, including through the transition to Avanti. So I am a certified Cherwell administrator as well as a certified Avanti Neurons for ITSM administrator as well. So during the course of today's demo, we kind of want to highlight some of the differences on the platform. So thank you all for joining, and let's continue.
Yep, thank you, Ryan. Paul Williams is also on from Atlassian. He's the head of Enterprise Solutions Sales. Paul, do you want to unmute for a minute and just say good morning? If you're on, I didn't see the list there, Laura. Okay, no problem. Just go forward. No problem. Paul might be muted there. Go ahead, Laura. Just a couple quick things here today. I came from Cherwell. The reason I went to that company, I enjoyed my years at Cherwell, is because it was a great company with a very customer-centric culture there. A great product. I love the user community. I even looked through the list of people registered for this webinar today, and I recognize a lot of the names, so I'm really excited about that. But I love the years at Cherwell. I said that customer focus was so critical. And then the purchase happened by Avanti, and things did change there a little bit, but I'm not here to bash companies. We're just here to talk about a great alternative today. But one thing I really see about Atlassian is that customer focus. You can just Google core values Atlassian, and you'll see what they think of the customers, clearly lifeblood of the company. And that's why people like Ryan and myself joined Atlassian. There's a lot of Cherwell people here, frankly. So hopefully you can draw some comparisons between the two products here. And if you're looking at other products, we can talk about that too. But it's just a great company to work for at Atlassian here. We just want to, take through a couple of things of licensing. I'm going to spend the first 5 minutes here going through why JSM, how our licensing works, a quick user story. Laura is going to mention their Jira migration toolkit, JSM toolkit. Then we're going to do the demo, and Ryan's going to be doing 99% of the talking today. And at the end, we'll talk about next steps. Go ahead, Laura. So I thought StrataCom did a great job of kind of laying out why should you consider Jira Service Management as an alternative to Cherwell. Well, Jira on the dev development side is widely implemented. I can remember doing a lot of demos with Cherwell. One of the first questions we always got was, do you integrate with Jira? Obviously, JSM does integrate with Jira, and we have both products, so it's a seamless integration. And a lot of you are already using Jira. I'll talk about a couple of customers that made that switch just recently. And another big one here, we just moved up into the top right quadrant for Gartner and Forrester. So that's a big credibility plus there. That helps with management, understanding why, JSM is a great alternative to other products that are out there. We're definitely one of the major players in the whole service management area. And then go ahead, Laura, I'll skip ahead there. So StrataCom had some great reasons as to why you want to go with JSM. Here's what we tell people, and this is based upon, talking to existing customers and, other people that are using the product. You'll see a real quick time to value with JSM. It's got a modern UI, UX, very easy to implement and deploy and administer. And it's built on the Jira platform, which is a very strong platform. Just to talk about licensing, I know most of you on Cherwell will have concurrent licensing, great model. Our model is similar to that, but you do require a license for anyone who manipulates a ticket, and it's not a shared license. But like Cherwell approvers, no license required. Someone coming in through the service portal to set up a ticket, no license required. I'll tell you right off the bat on costs though, you may need 2 times the licenses for JSM. Our product is priced very sensibly on the market, and we can talk about that later. I'll even send you information, or StrataCom can, regarding our pricing. It's all online, very transparent company. Our product really helps you align DevOps and operations. That shared knowledge, running Jira and Jira Service Management makes perfect sense. A very common logical thing to do. In the base product, you do get enterprise service management. So not only do you get ITSM, you get all the other HR, the facilities management. We've had organizations that start out with facilities management. I've got one right now doing a supply chain management app. For the first application for phase 1, ITSM is coming later. That's all included in the base product. Like Cherwell, low code, no code, so you don't need a team of developers. And all these things result in one thing, an overall lower total cost of ownership. And it makes us the best value on the marketplace. And I know we got to prove that to you, but this is feedback we're getting from our customers. Go ahead, Laura. And then if you don't believe StrataCom, you don't believe what we're saying, here's what one of our customers said, Finish Line. They're the athletic shoes distributor, about 10,000 employees. James Scott is the main contact there. You can actually Google the user story. If you pull up Finish Line and James Scott, why they moved to JSM. He was a ServiceNow bigot, believe it or not. And he looked at JSM and said, boy, it does make sense to have a single platform. And we hear that every day. Down at the bottom, one of my stories in Des Moines, Iowa is American Equity. I actually worked with them in purchasing Cherwell. They moved over to JSM primarily for this reason, to have a single platform. So you're not cutting and pasting, recreating tickets, a very error-prone, time-consuming process. They felt it was justifiable to go to JSM just for that one reason. I hear that a lot. The cost savings for Finish Line, very attractive. We're a very reasonably priced product. I thought this is an interesting quote. Performs all the same functions as our previous tool. Very intuitive, easy to administer, and it's used all over at Finish Line. It's not just ITSM. You can see, real estate, customer care, etc. Then a couple other quick stories. I mentioned American Equity. Hy-Vee down in Des Moines is part of the country. I'm based in Minnesota. Hy-Vee has 1,200 JSM licensing, very successful enterprise-wide deployment. HR came to them about a year ago and said, hey, we need some case management. They used our forms to develop a case management for HR within 48 hours. The admin did that. So very, good product that way. And Dell uses our product very successfully. Go ahead, Laura. And if you don't believe anybody, talk to the analyst. One more slide. Gartner and Forrester think very highly of us. Go ahead, Laura. And we're really proud of the fact that we moved up into the upper right-hand quadrant. Like I said, it really adds to the credibility there. So go ahead, Laura. One more. So, oh, go ahead, Laura. Before we jump into the demo, Laura, if you want to take over here and just talk about the migration tool, and then we'll have Ryan kick things off.
Sure, I'll cover it just really quickly. For anyone interested, we can talk in detail later. When we first started presenting Jira Service Management to our Cherwell client base is an interesting tool to consider moving to. One of the first questions we got to, is there a migration toolkit? So we decided, since there wasn't, why not build it? It's what we do. We've migrated companies from enterprise to enterprise platform before. So we're really excited to roll it out. It's a new tool. It's working really great. Our owners have been extremely impressed with the speed and the capabilities of what we've built so far. To give you a quick snapshot, it's basically out-of-box mappings from Cherwell CSM core modules to JSM core models. It's an easy to use mapping tool for custom fields as well as out-of-box fields. It's configurable. You can map to any Cherwell object, to any JSM object that you wish. And we do it by using a native REST API calls to grab the data from Cherwell and move it over into JSM. So if you're interested in learning more, let us know. We'd be happy to show you what we built.
Perfect.
And with that, I think we'll turn it over to Ryan.
Yep, go ahead, Ryan.
Okay, thank you. Give me one moment to share out my screen, and if I can just get a screen check just to make sure you're able to see my service desk snapshot.
Yep, looks good.
We do.
Okay, awesome. Then let's dive into it. Give me one moment to load my Rich client. Oh, wait, there isn't one in Atlassian. So we are in an entirely web-based solution, including all administration and configuration of the platform. So before we dive into the product itself, a couple of notes I'd like to make. One, the Atlassian platform is available in 2 editions. We have a data center edition, which is an on-premises implementation where you completely control the platform. And then there is a cloud-based solution. Now, the cloud-based solution is actually architected for the cloud. And part of the reason I point that out is one of the challenges we used to run into with Cherwell was that we took a MSI file basically to install Cherwell on a server and basically just ran that up in the cloud. So what that meant was upgrades were a bit of a challenge at times, particularly when it came to custom forms and workflows. In the Atlassian model, we are a containerized architecture for the cloud. So what that means is when it comes time to upgrade, all you notice is that, hey, new features just appeared. You do not have to worry about how it's going to impact any of your users. Okay. Now, for purposes of today's demonstration, we are going to be focusing on the cloud edition. There are a few differences between the data center and cloud. I just wanted to point that out ahead of time, and happy to schedule some time walking anyone through the data center edition if there is interest. Okay. So we start with dashboards, and we'll actually return to dashboards later on in this experience. But as part of the platform, I can visualize all the workflows within my platform, looking at things like my SLA achievement, my time to resolution, all defined very easily. What we also do is organize our workflows into projects. And this is kind of a major difference from both the Cherwell and Ivanti platform. And gives our customers a lot of flexibility. So what I mean by these projects, and probably a better word to use to describe it would be workspaces, which gives individual teams autonomy to really adapt the platform to follow their own workflow. So what I mean by that is, with Cherwell and Ivanti, you have a monolithic incident object, same with service request problem. And part of the challenge with that is I may have multiple teams running incidents or service requests. And it meant that I had to enter into negotiations with all of those teams to come down to a common set of fields. And I often, as an administrator, would have to do a lot of, if it's this kind of ticket, then show these fields. If it's this team that owns this ticket, then we're going to follow this workflow. A lot of exception configuration that adds to the complexity of the implementation. Well, with Atlassian, I can simply define a project for each of my teams, like my IT support team, and they have their own incident object, problem, changes, service requests, all your typical ITIL practices, but in a way that they can design it to fit their specific needs. What that also means is from an implementation standpoint, I'm kind of freed up. I don't have to go spend 6 to 8 months building out a single incident object in order to roll it out to dozens of teams. Instead, I can focus on an individual team, like my IT operations team or my HR team, and focus on just their particular requirements and implement in weeks versus months for a traditional ITSM platform. As we see within the individual projects, they have their own queues, their own service request objects. They can also have their own change calendars, as well as their own knowledge-based spaces. And we'll return to those here in just a moment. Now, in terms of customers, how they interact with the platform, we kind of want to start there and look at all the ways that customers can initiate tickets, check status of tickets, or access knowledge content through the platform. And as we see here, just in my channels menu, we've got a number of modalities. So one, just like with Cherwell, we have the ability to monitor a mailbox. So users can simply email this address and we'll automatically ingest that email and generate a ticket for them. We also have a self-service center that we're going to jump to here in just a minute. But in addition to that, we've got a couple of other interesting ideas here. One is a web-based widget. And what this means is I can essentially define a micro form that I can embed on my own public website or on an intranet or other sites, and essentially enable users without the need to log in to go report a ticket. So that gives me just additional options for my users to initiate contact. And as we see here, I've got a lot of flexibility over how I want those forms rendered, how I want to embed it into the site. In addition to the forms, if we go back into that channels menu, you'll notice we also have ChatOps capabilities. So what this means is over in Slack or Microsoft Teams, if you're using any of those particular enterprise collaboration tools, you also have additional methods for users to access content, check status of tickets, as well as initiate tickets. And we'll actually see a bit of that during the demonstration, and we'll see that it's actually considerably more than the Slack and Teams integration that we had with Cherwell. Okay, so let's go start at the Help Center and look at the self-service portal. And let me actually back that up to the top of the Help Center. And as we see here, users have the ability to basically interact with multiple teams. As Rod mentioned during the presentation, we've got customers that are leveraging the Jira Service Management platform, not just for traditional IT, but also things like facilities. I've got plumbing leak. HR, maybe I want to update my benefits, for example. Marketing teams, hey, I need some brochures for customers. Anywhere in your organization where there's common requests that are coming in that the teams may be struggling with trying to manage those workflows through email or Excel spreadsheets, or you see people with monitors that are just ringed in Post-it notes to remind them to do things, those are all opportunities for digitization in the Jira Service Management platform. And each of those can have their own micro portals within the Jira Self-Service Center, or as is the more common scenario, users can just go to the global search and tell us things like maybe Gmail's not working. And as we search through, we're going to search through all of the projects that user has permissions to access and do a couple of things. We're going to, one, search Confluence, our knowledge-based platform, for any relevant articles that may help that customer. And then we're also going to search through the service request catalog for all of my projects to see if there's relevant service requests to make. Now, in this case, let's imagine that I'm having problems with Gmail. It's just not working for me. Well, my first article coming up is Gmail's not working. And as we open that up and look at it from the self-service portal, we can see that we've got much more than simple multimedia content within this particular knowledge article. So for example, I can actually embed status metrics around that particular service's health. So I can inform users if we have a known issue with that platform. I can also do things like embed videos directly in it, because we're seeing more and more users that simply don't want to read. They want to go find a video. All of those are types of content that we can embed into our knowledge base, enriching that experience for our users. Now, hopefully this would solve this customer's particular challenge. And at the bottom, they can basically give us some metrics, let us know if this article helped them, so we can identify the content that's resonating with our audience and helping them, and using that as kind of a snowball to build up and get more content to hopefully deflect potential tickets in the system. Now, let's imagine for a moment that we have a different case. Maybe I've decided that it's not really Gmail that's the issue, it's my laptop. It's just running slow. I want a new one. Well, I can go throw a keyword against a new laptop, and as we see, a number of service requests popped up from our service catalog. And let's go ahead and request a new notebook. Now, similar to what you're used to with Cherwell, where you can have specific forms for specific types of service requests that come into the system, we can do the same with the Jira Service Management platform. So this enables me to have a tailored form for each service request type to make sure that we're getting all the details necessary so that when my team receives a ticket, they can focus on fulfilling that request versus picking up the phone and asking a whole bunch of different questions that we forgot to ask right up front. So we'll go ahead and fill this out. So, I'd like a new notebook. And one difference we'll see also right up top is, as soon as the customer enters in a summary for a ticket, we take that opportunity to do one more search of our knowledge base. Often I see users that just completely bypass the knowledge base. They don't try to search and solve their own problem. So let's take this opportunity to push up content to them to hopefully deflect as many tickets as possible. Now, in this case, I've reviewed this, and I've decided I still want to go on with requesting a new notebook. And from here, I can choose from available models that may be available for my particular user. Looks like I'm a little restricted on this one. I can basically use the attributes of that user to restrict it by department, by what location they're at, to frame specific requests in the system. And let's take a look at slightly different requests. Let's actually take an HR case as an example here. So as we see from this service request, the fields that we're gathering are quite different, mostly because it's a different type of request routing to a different team. So just as I mentioned before, we have that ability to, basically tailor the experience to make sure we're capturing all the details up front. Okay. Now, at any point as a user, I do have the ability to go in and check on the status of any of my tickets. So I can quickly see the status of those tickets. I can also see what teams that has been routed to. So in addition to my IT requests, I can also see my HR requests, my facilities. So rather than having to remember a dozen or more different websites to make requests for HR or facilities or marketing or any other department, I have that one source that I can go to and see all of my requests and just simplify my life. In addition to that, we also have the ability to manage approvals through the self-service center. So as a manager, if I've got a number of requests that have been needing my approval, rather than having to manage all that through email where those emails can potentially get buried, I can simply go to the self-service portal, access any of the requests that have been directed directly to me for approval, and I can approve and deny directly through the self-service center. I can also, by the way, approve via email as well. Okay. So I mentioned before, this is just one mode that users can choose to interact with the service desk with the Jira Service Management platform. In addition to that, we also have some rich ChatOps capability. And what I mean by that is my users who may be using Slack or Microsoft Teams have the ability to come in and go to a channel and basically say, need access to Salesforce. We'll use that as an example here. And as we see in Atlassian Assist, which is bundled as part of the Jira Service Management platform, and promptly notice that I've got a request coming in. It'll ask us for a little bit of details, like fix an account problem, where we can also capture those specific forms, just like we saw on the self-service center. So I need access to Salesforce, need admin access. Why not? From here, I can go create that particular ticket, and we can see immediately we've got a reply in from the system where it's generated that ticket. It's now ticket ITS 2246, where I can always view the status of that ticket from within Slack. Now, what's also interesting is from an IT perspective, if I were an agent, I actually have the ability over in Slack or Teams to see, hey, we've got tickets that just came into the system. Let me see, maybe we'll stick with this one. I have the ability to basically take ownership of tickets directly from within Slack. I can update the status of those tickets, communicate with the user directly through Slack, essentially work that ticket from start to finish purely within my Slack interface. Particularly handy if I'm mobile. I can always just bring up Slack on my mobile phone, which, by the way, there's also a very rich mobile application available for JSM as well that lets me work any ticket remotely as well. So it just adds additional options for my user base, including for other teams. So for example, HR, I have the ability to go create HR tickets through the same mechanism, or any other team. So I'm not restricted to simply IT within the organization. Okay. So we've seen how users can create a few tickets in the platform, and let's go take a look at that from the agent's perspective. So switching back over, I'm in my IT support project, and we've got a couple of requests that have come into the system. Now, I can manage those in a number of different ways. One, we have a automation platform that can automatically prescriptively assign tickets based off workload of my team. So I can basically take whoever has the fewest number of tickets and prescriptively assign to them. Or I can also route tickets into queues, and we can define as many queues as we like to manage those tickets. Think of them kind of as filters for tickets, and I can leverage any attribute of those tickets for routing. So that could be by geography, as we see here. I've got some APAC queues, America queues. I could also have tickets based off types of requests coming in, like project intake requests. I can also have VIP users that are elevated to different queues as well. Now, for any of these tickets, I can either do mass updates, so I can simply check off a bunch, do a bulk comment, or I can transition those to a specific stage, all within this grid, which is a nice capability. Or I can just go into the individual ticket and update from here. Okay, so what we're looking at right now is a service request within Jira Service Management, and you'll see this design layout and philosophy carries through with both incidents, problem management, as well as other workflows in the system. So within each ticket, I can see who raised the request, how it was raised, the description of their ticket. We also do a quick search for similar requests to see, hey, do we have a pattern of activity going on, with the ability to link those tickets over to this ticket as well. Particularly useful from a incident management perspective, where I can see, do we have a widespread outage that may be affecting multiple people? At the top right of the ticket, I can see my SLAs. So we can see I've already blown through my resolution SLA, and I can also see my response time SLA. So nice, clear messaging here. For each ticket, it's also going to have its workflow. So this one's currently waiting on customers, so I'm in a pending state. But if I'm curious about what the workflow looks like, we can see multiple next steps or stages for this particular ticket here. But I can also go look at the workflow for this ticket and visually see what are the various paths that this ticket can take to resolution. Now, different request types or incidents or change requests can have their own workflow within the platform. So if you have your own status gates that you want to advance through, your own way that you want these tickets to progress, you can define that easily within the platform. And we'll actually see a bit of that during this demonstration. Okay. Now, within each ticket, I can also quickly see who's been assigned to it. I can also have a list of request participants or people that are basically watching this particular ticket as it goes through its life cycle. We can also see we automate each ticket with a knowledge-based search, so I can quickly drill through to see is there relevant knowledge content that may help me fulfill this particular request. And I'm actually going to go back out and look at a slightly different ticket real quick. We'll take this new notebook request to see a few other details on these requests. So in this particular case, a user has requested a new notebook, and the details that they entered in at the self-service portal are all pushed up to the top of the ticket. So another way that we kind of use that tailored experience for different types of requests as they come into the system. In addition to that, as part of the platform, we also include a CMDB. We call it assets within the platform. And as a result of that, one of the things that we do is do a quick lookup of each user as they submit a request to see, do they already have infrastructure that may help me with troubleshooting an issue. You know, users often have a hard time remembering the host name of their laptop, for example, or other relevant details. Well, while working this ticket, if I need that information, I can simply just use this down arrow to get a snapshot of that user's laptop. So I can see its life cycle state, it's currently active. I can see what make and model they have that may be useful. I can also see details like when does their warranty expire, which again may help me make the right course, choose the right course of action over the course of this particular ticket. In addition to seeing those details, I can also go look at an object detail view. And what this will do is basically show me relationships between that target object, in this case a laptop, and other infrastructure. Now, from a service request perspective, you know, not the most useful capability, but from an incident management perspective, this could be huge because it could tell me that, hey, I'm troubleshooting a service that's down, and oh, well, the switch that the web server is plugged into may be down. This kind of view helps me perform that kind of isolation of issues very, very quickly. In addition to that, I can navigate to the other objects to get a snapshot of those, as well as I can also see, are there any open issues reported against any of those objects, or in this case, people. So I can kind of take a quick look to see, can I also resolve those while I'm working on this particular ticket? So a great way to navigate through. Okay, so a lot of information right up front just from this service request. I also have the ability to go, send notes to the customer and throughout the life cycle of this. So I can simply hit reply to customer. I can also do internal notes if I just want to communicate that as well, if we need to go check things internally. So as I go document these notes, I also have the ability to ping other users and basically flag them. You know, can you, for example, so I can kind of communicate with other teams collaboratively within a ticket simply through writing a comment. Now that's one way I can ping other users. What I can also do is, create subtasks for tickets. And this also includes the ability to do templates where I can have like onboarding activities that are commonly performed anytime this type of ticket request comes in. So in this case, I can go assign to multiple users and kind of track the status of those subtasks. I also have the ability to go link issues together. As Rod mentioned before, the Jira Service Management platform is part of the Jira Jira software platform as well. So what that means is I may have developers working on the same platform within their own DevOps projects within the system. So I have the ability to go link to either other incidents, other service requests, as well as other work efforts by those developers. So if I did identify a bug, I could go link to a DevOps team and assign them the activity of helping us troubleshoot that bug. Again, definitely useful within a incident context. Okay. So speaking of which, from the service request, let's go take a look at incidents as well. So in my particular scenario, I have a support desk that's predominantly focused on service requests in the system. I have an operations team that is predominantly focused on incident management. And as part of their activities, we have regular incidents, but we also support major incident activities where we've got a outage that has occurred that we need to troubleshoot. We also have activities around post-incident management. So, for example, a post-incident review where we can do root cause analysis and identify whether or not we need to go through problem management to prevent issues in the future. Okay, so we're going to go into an incident. A lot of similarity to what we've seen in the service request, but a few key differences that we want to highlight. So one, we want to link our incidents to what services are impacted, in this case, billing. And I have the ability here to see, oh, we've got some open incidents that have already been reported against that particular service. Again, useful to help me identify if this is a wider spread issue than I originally think. So I can quickly see, okay, we've got other incidents. I can potentially link those to this particular ticket in a parent-child relationship or other causal relationships as well. And just like we saw over in the service request, I have the ability to go investigate that service and look at its dependencies, or even walk through other related item dependencies. As part of this, I can also adjust that view. So maybe I want a little wider view. Maybe I want to go see 2 hops and kind of see, okay, online sales now adds to that. I can also filter by reference, by types of relationships like dependencies, or if it's a physical relationship, contractual or otherwise. Okay, so again, useful information to help me troubleshoot this issue faster. Now, in addition to that, so we earlier saw, how I can go create tickets over in Slack or update those particular tickets. That's not our only use case for ChatOps within the platform. So as I'm troubleshooting a potentially a major incident, and I can always go flag this one as a major incident, I can also do some swarming to help me resolve this issue sooner. So for example, I can go create a channel over in Slack. So what this will do is as soon as I hit create channel, it'll make sure we're in the right workspace. It'll create a channel, in this case called ITO 2127, where I can get all my subject matter experts together and collaborate on resolving this particular issue faster. What'll happen is as this ticket advances in its life cycle and ultimately gets resolved, we will take a transcript of that chat session and append that to the comments of this particular ticket, and then close out that particular channel. In addition to that, I could also create conference calls, start a Zoom session, whatever it takes to get the appropriate team together to help us resolve this issue faster. Okay. Now, in addition to this, I also wanted to spend some time talking about how we route incidents. So, we talked earlier about service requests and basically routing based off workload of my team. That doesn't always work when it comes to incidents. Instead, I want to have specific subject matter experts that are on tap anytime we have a critical issue with a service. Well, fortunately, as part of the Jira Service Management suite of solutions, we also include Opsgenie, which is being steadily folded into the Jira Service Management platform. So what that means is, as native to the platform, I now gain an on-call schedule where I can basically define how do I want to manage critical incidents that come in for my critical services. So as we see here, I've got multiple schedules based off my different applications. And for each of those, I can go drill in further into Opsgenie itself and define how do I want this path to work. So I can first define my on-call schedules, who's going to be available on rotation. And then I can also define escalation policies. So if those people do not respond quickly enough, who do we reach out to next? If they don't resolve it within a time period, who do we reach out to beyond that? So I can have multiple layers of escalations, all defined through my escalation rules. Highly useful to help us make sure that we are responding to issues quickly and effectively. Okay. Now, in addition to these on-call schedules, I also leverage the Opsgenie platform to ingest alerts from my monitoring and management tools. So what does that mean? I simply add an integration. And as we see here, there's quite a laundry list of monitoring and management tools that we have pre-built connectors for to ingest alerts or notifications to help us accelerate generating that incident faster, reacting to that outage faster, and resolving it more effectively. Okay, So all of these are available within the platform, and simply all I have to do is choose the integration that I want to leverage. And in many cases, we'll have direct instructions right up at the top of what needs to be performed on the other solution to facilitate that integration, and then define your settings here, and we're off to the races. Okay. Now, as part of the Opsgenie platform, we also have a mobile application with some great notifications to help wake up people in the dead of night if we do have issues that they need to respond to. Okay. So that just helps me accelerate my response to incidents much more effectively. Okay. Now, let's imagine for a moment that that incident has now been resolved. Well, that may not be the end of our activities. So as we close out a given major incident, if you've got some post activities that need to be performed, we can simply add in a post incident review and manage those activities of identifying what was the root cause of this particular issue. So if I go into my post incident reviews, and we'll take a look at that. This just gives us a nice process for documenting, what was the root cause? What were our services? Did we identify a workaround over the course of this? Now, as part of this same activity, I can also take that opportunity to expand on our knowledge base. And maybe we identify a workaround that we want to make sure users are aware of. Well, just directly within the JSM platform, I can go create a new article, leverage our templates within Confluence, and I get a rich experience to document that new finding in a way that's much more readable for our users. Okay. Additionally, as part of the JSM platform, we also have the ability to do problem management as well. So if we do follow that particular ITIL practice to identify how to prevent issues moving forward, we can follow those workflows in the platform as well. Okay, now that's just the out of the box. You also have the ability to define your own workflows within the platform as well. So what I mean by that, let's take a look at just how easy it is to configure this particular platform. So within each project, if I have sufficient privileges as a project manager, I have the ability to come down to my project settings and customize the experience for my team. So what that means is, for one, I can actually just turn off specific features for this particular project. So if I've got a team that is just doing service requests, I can simply just turn off incident management for that particular team. What I can also do in that same scenario is define my service catalog through request types. So in request types, I simply define, what are the offerings we want to make available either through the self-service portal or for my engineers. And it's a simple 3-step process. I start by defining a request type. So maybe this is going to be a new iPad. We'll use that as an example. We can, from there, define what kind of workflow we're going to use as a template for this. And we can organize those into basically categories within the self-service portal to help my customers navigate those. So I may include this as part of my common requests group. From here, it's a simple 3-step wizard. The first part is the request form, which is basically what my users are going to experience through the self-service portal. So what are the fields we want to capture up front to make sure that we're able to accelerate our fulfillment of this particular ticket? And very easy to do. I've got my fields over on the right-hand side, so I simply just drag and drop those into my form. There we go. And as I add these into the ticket, I do have the ability to give them an override name. I can also define if this is required before the user can submit that particular form. Okay. At any point, as I'm building out this request, if I save it, I have the ability to go preview it in the self-service portal to see what that experience looks like for my end users. Now, a couple of notes comparing this with Cherwell. So one, if we think about the process of defining a new service catalog offering within Cherwell, well, that involves going to table management, going to incident category and subcategory and stubbing out the entry. Then I would have to go to the admin client to define my specifics forms, publish that blueprint, and then come in and associate that particular specific form to that incident subcategory. So just those 4 steps have been taken care of with this one form within the platform. What you'll also notice is I don't have to have specific XY coordinates for all of my fields. We do adaptive layouts for everything. So what that means is I've got a rich mobile experience that I don't have to redesign for my users. It also means that as we perform updates that may impact the UI of the platform, we're not breaking your forms or workflows. Okay. Now, after defining that request form, we then go to the issue view. So this is the view that my agents are going to see when a ticket comes in. And we've got the core fields here, which would be the main area of the ticket. We also have context fields, which is basically the sidebar of the service request. And I can determine, what tasks, what fields do we want to add in, simply drag and drop, and we've defined what our agents are going to see as part of these tickets. The last step in defining those service requests is the workflow. And I can come into a visual editor for those workflows. And let me make sure I'm in the edit mode. And it's a simple drag and drop experience to define your workflows. So what that means is if I wanted to add a option here, let's imagine we wanted to add a approval process as part of this. Well, I simply add a status and let me do awaiting approval as this new status. We'll add that in and we see here's our new approval block. And from here, I simply just drag the connectors to determine where this lives within the lifecycle of that ticket. And for each of those, we can define a transition that will map over any automation activities that need to be performed as part of it. If I want to make this particular step an approval requirement, I simply do check off the include approval step. From here, I determine what's the number of approvals needed to consider this to be approved, and where do we find the approver? So I can actually have just a field that has like the manager of the user or approvers where we determine for that particular issue who we should be reaching out to for approval. Okay. So very easy to define approvals directly within the system, and also very easy to define your workflow exactly the way you would like it to look. Okay. At any point within this workflow, I can kick off automations to send out notifications or communicate via Slack, or kick off third-party integrations like REST calls to automate some of these activities as well. All of it done without the need to write any kind of code. Okay. Speaking of which, while we're on that subject, we've seen just defining a new service request. If we think about that automation platform, well, if I go look at my automation rules, even the automation level is very easy to define. So all I have to do is come in, create a new rule, and it starts with the trigger. What is going to fire off this particular automation? And that could be when an issue is created or certain fields change. What it can also do is be on a scheduled basis. So I can say, hey, every night at midnight, go execute this. Or I can also have manual triggers as well. So as we see from this extensive list, I'm not going to read all of them, a lot of potential opportunities to fire off integrations in the platform. Once we've chosen our trigger, we can also have additional conditions. So maybe I only care about particular types of issues. Well, I can narrow this down to the request type. And there it is. And we can filter that to, hey, I only care about the ones where we have a request for an access badge. From there, we can perform a number of actions through the platform. And as I see in this actions activity, quite a few options, everything from sending email, creating related issues or tasks, as well as creating related activities in other projects, adding watchers. As we see in notifications, I can go send SMS messages, I can send Slack messages, as well as sending web requests. So that also means I can go call third-party REST APIs for automation. I also have the ability to update other requests. I can go look up objects within the CMDB, quite a few activities directly within that action. Okay, so it gives us a lot of flexibility to automate as much as possible within the platform. Okay. Now, in addition to that, I also have the ability to define my own issue types within the system to really help me make sure that any team that's using the platform has their workflows tailored fit to their business processes. Okay. Now, the next area on our journey is the CMDB. So I mentioned this before, and we've seen a little bit of it from within the context of a ticket, but there's more to the assets capability. So as we go into this, a couple of quick notes. One, we organize our asset data into object schemas. So the reason we do this is one, for logical grouping of our assets, as well as for security. So I can basically have object schemas like my IT employee assets that are only accessible for, say, my service desk. They need to know what laptop you have in order to fulfill your request faster. However, things like my servers, routers, those may be within the purview of my operations team, and that service desk staff doesn't need access to it. So I can actually have a separate schema that just has access for my data center operators. Okay, so if we go look at what one of these schemas look like, all of this is fully configurable. I can define as many object types as I like. This is just one example where we're tracking IT employee assets. So I can see things like, what are all the laptops that we've issued to my users? Within any of these objects, I can go drill in and see, a lot of the details that we saw earlier within that particular ticket, as well as additional details for them. For each asset, as I look at it, I can see any open issues for that particular ticket asset to kind of tell me, is this a problem child or whatnot. I also have a full audit trail of that particular asset to see what changes have been made, what was the, who made that change, what was the old value as well. So I've got a nice audit trail for each CI. And I can fully track its life cycle, financial metrics, as well as relationships to other elements. Okay. Now, as I mentioned before, this is all fully configurable. So what does that mean? Well, it means that for one, I have the ability to ad hoc just come in and create new object types. So maybe I want to track tablet. We already have tablets over here. So let's track mice as an example. I can define, what kind of icon it has, where it lives within this tree, and whether or not it inherits attribute data from its parent. So we just created mice as an example here. And from here, I can define whatever attributes I want to capture for it. So simply going into the attribute view, I can define attributes, what type of data we want to capture, whether those are select lists or whatnot. That can also include relationship information. So for example, I can relate this mouse over to a laptop simply by defining an attribute that will be of type object, and we'll use laptop over here. And I can also describe that relationship, whether it's a technical, or if it's a dependency, if it's a financial relationship, like maybe the contracts for a system, I can add those in. So now we've added that relationship. And what that means is now if I go back to my objects, create an object, I can simply name my object and associate it with the laptop. All done very quickly. I didn't have to build out a blueprint. I didn't have to do a scan that takes 8 hours. I simply made that modification. To give you other examples of what these object schemas can look like, if I go look at a more granular technical infrastructure like a data center, we can get very granular down to tracking all of my hosts, as well as what applications are installed on those systems, what licenses have we tracked. So this is a great example of non-technical data that can be brought into the system, including things like contracts, people data, as well as tracking like the operating systems, or even like what databases we have running on systems. Now, we've been looking at very IT-centric views so far, and it doesn't have to remain that way. So for example, I could have like a customer support object schema where I can track all of my customers, for example. And within each customer, I can track what products are they currently licensed for. When does their contract expire? When, who is their primary contact? All of this data can be leveraged within service requests or incidents, as well as through our automation platform. So we can define activities like, I want to have an outreach for customers before their their support agreements expire. Let's get ahead of those. Let's track certificates before they expire and make sure those get renewed and don't cause an incident just because they expired. So a lot of potential through the assets configuration. And it's all highly configurable. So if I go look at a object schema, we do have import processes that can be fully extended through plugins from our marketplace, which we'll see here in a little bit, as well as the ability to define your own connectors as well. So I can come in and just define what type of import I'm performing. From there, we'll just do a CSV. Simply tell us like the delimiter, drag and drop the file if that's available, and then we map out the attributes. Now, to see what that mapping looks like, simply we choose first what objects we're bringing in, and for each of those, I'll take the host. It's a simple choose from the data source field to what is the destination field within the CMDB. You can also identify whether our primary keys to make sure we're doing lookups to update assets versus creating new ones to make sure we've got a clean CMDB. Okay, so very easy to bring in asset data and maintain that asset data over the long term. Okay. Now, once we've got all of our workflows working, we've been working tickets, we've got assets in the system that are aiding our teams in resolving those issues faster. Now we want to get some insight into how are we performing as a group. Well, as part of that, we do have a integrated reporting capability in the system. So from within any project, I can go into reports. We've got a number of out-of-the-box reports, such as workload, satisfaction from survey requests, as well as tracking like requests resolved. You can also define your own reports as well. Simply come in, give it a name, and add series data in. So as we can see, I don't have to write any kind of code. It's not complicated at all. I simply just choose what series of data I want to bring into the system. So these are predefined metrics that we're already tracking as part of the platform, and then filter that by specific types of tickets that I care about for this. Maybe I only care about problem requests and incidents, and I only want to see the ones that have the highest criticality. I simply add that, and sometimes the solution's smarter than I am, and very quickly we just created a custom report that's tracking problems and incidents in the system. So very easy to define a unique view per each project through the reporting. Now, if we want to see a higher level view, we've got a couple of capabilities there. So we started today's experience over in dashboards. As we come back over, we can see how easy it is to define those. So I can have as many dashboards as I like, and each dashboard is defined simply through adding gadgets to it. So we've got, as we can see here, over 40 different types of gadgets looking at things like, average time and status, bubble charts, when were these tickets created. We've also got a number of plugins available on our marketplace that further extend these capabilities. So really all I have to do is just add a widget into my dashboard. We see it popped up. There may be some filters for that particular widget. So maybe this we'll use a save filter, for example. We'll save that, and now we've got a new element on our particular dashboard. So very easy to define these to get an exact look and feel, including the layout of these dashboards as well. Now, the dashboards can span multiple projects, so I can see tickets from any project I have permissions to access, which also kind of gives me a much higher level view of what's going on. I also like to point out, by the way, that we also have the ability to run dashboards in slideshows. So if I've got a communal, LCD monitor up in my NOC or in a break room, I can actually have it sliding through multiple dashboards to give people insight into current service status. Okay. Now, in addition to that, we've talked before about being able to, the fact that, we have multiple teams using JSM, including development teams, they can also be managing their work activity. That enables a couple of possibilities here that I always wished we had over in the Cherwell platform. So for example, I have the ability to define Kanban boards in the system where I can actually visualize ticket data. These, as we see it down here, are service requests as well as incidents or problems. In each of those, I can update simply through dragging and dropping. So another means of visualizing the work being done by our teams. Additionally, I can also have advanced roadmaps that I can define within the platform. So again, visualizing activity over multiple teams, over a timeline to see how we're continually refining our services and improving them. Okay, these are just among many options that are available. So I also like to point out that we have the Atlassian Marketplace, where we have over 5,000 plugins that give us additional charts and diagrams, document management, integrations, workflows built out of the system that help you further extend the platform. So another experience that helps us further get more value from this particular platform. Okay, and then one last area I also wanted to also make sure that we communicate. So on our website, you can actually see the roadmap of our platform. So if you go to atlassian.com/trust, there's actually a link to the roadmap of the product where I can come in and maybe filter by the specific product. We'll filter to Jira Service Management. And I can actually see what's coming up in the future in terms of new capabilities that will be offered, as well as an idea of when that may be released. So we try to be as transparent as possible with our customers to make sure you know what's coming up ahead, as well as the ability for you to vote on new ideas for the platform and make sure that you're continuing to get better value from it. Okay. So at this point, we have completed a nice high-level tour of the Jira Service Management platform. I want to thank you all very much for spending your time with us today. We do hope this has been a good use of everyone's time. And at this point, I'd like to open it up to see if we have any questions of the audience that we can answer here.
Thanks, Ryan. We have got quite a few questions that have been flowing into our chat session. Rod, would you like me to read through the questions, or would you prefer to do that?
Go ahead, Laura, that's fine.
All right, let me get to the top here. All right, so I'll start at the top. We'll work our way down. If anyone else in the audience has questions, feel free to put those into the chat session and we'll make sure to cover them all. If you have to drop for other meetings, we will be recording this. So if you're looking forward to Q&A, feel free to watch the recording when we send it out at a later time. The first question we have is, how do you ensure that if the request is handed over to another team, that, as you mentioned, have potentially a complete other request form, no information's lost?
Okay. So if we need to hand off over to, say, my DevOps team or maybe to HR to perform those, really the most common scenario I see customers using that for is using our automation platform, because that enables us to replicate any attribute of the originating issue over into that destination issue. That's the ideal scenario. And in fact, we see that quite often with onboarding activities where we'll create a parent HR ticket as well as child IT tickets, facilities tickets, and they can share data between those tickets.
Okay, thank you. The next question I have is, a large percentage of our customer population are imported nightly as customers via a batch file import. Is this possible to import customers this way with Jira Service Management?
Absolutely. That's a pretty common scenario for us. So we would, what I would recommend is often we track that within our assets area. So like I've got a people object over here where we can track our organization, like departments, regions, things like that. And all this data would have potentially come over from an LDAP or from a batch export from like Workday or any of those platforms.
Okay, thank you. Next one, is projects a configurable label? I get the concept, but that label could be misunderstood by users thinking this is a PM tool.
I understand that point. That is a fair point. I believe you could. Now, we do offer multi-language support, so you can have multiple languages. And I believe what you could kind of do is define your own I guess, variation of English and override projects with your own terminology, like maybe workspace or something like that.
Okay. Very good, thank you. The next question, I believe Rod answered. The question was, is there a public list of the integrations available? I see Rod put a list,
Yeah, I
a
sent that
link
out, Laura.
here.
Yep.
Yeah, so if anyone's listening and wants to see that, feel free to check the link in the chat. If you have any trouble seeing that link, feel free to email me directly and I'm happy to share that with you as well. Get back up to the top of the question queue here. Is there some kind of public dashboard or messaging system for service outages?
Yes, there is. And in fact, part of this is not actually part of the Jira Service Management platform, just to make sure I'm clear, but we do offer status page. And status page gives us the ability, let me open that in a new tab, gives us the ability to communicate on the health of our services. So this is where, and let me visit the status page, where my users can come in and see, hey, we've got some major issues currently going on. Users can subscribe to updates of my services. They can view all of my services and their outages, as well as subscribe to specific incidents. This also, by the way, can be integrated in with our self-service portal. So if I go look at my help center, as we were earlier, you'll see there's a status update. We've got multiple issues, so we can communicate that to users and drive them over to status page. Now, the main thing I did want to be clear that that is licensed separately from Jira Service Management, but it can be tightly integrated as we just saw.
Okay, thank you. Next question, is the cost for Confluence included in the ITSM price? This person said they're seeing large increases in Confluence as a standalone platform and have considered abandoning it. So could you explain that, please?
So it's a little bit different with JSM. So what JSM offers is now the ability through the self-service portal for users to navigate and consume Confluence content without a license. So I would still need licenses in Confluence for the people that are writing Confluence content, my authors, my administrators, but my end users who are just consuming it, they do not require a license as part of the JSM product itself.
Okay, great. Thank you for that explanation. Very helpful. Next one, does the import also give possibility to check if an object is no longer in the import file? For example, highlight them, or how do you maintain valid data in the CMDB?
That's a great question. And part of that comes down to how we architect the federation. And the reason I bring that up is quite often what I see customers do is actually define an object schema as kind of a staging table. So I may come in and have, and actually I'm going to briefly switch to a separate instance to explain this. There we go. That kind of helps explain this a little bit better. So if I go over to Insights on this, by the way, this is the data center edition. In this particular case, I may have object schemas specifically for integrations, like Device 42 has its own temporary schema. And what we kind of do is use this as a staging ground. So when we first import in, we bring it into this schema, which then triggers off our automation to now compare this with our primary schema that my users are actually looking at. So then we would go through and say, hey, does this vendor also exist in that schema? If so, let's update it. If it did not exist, let's create it. We could also use this to compare like the life cycle states of those. So if we had a decommissioned vendor, or they did not, or they weren't in this particular list, we can use that as an opportunity to identify that situation and update the main object schema appropriately. So basically, it's all through automation. What I also recommend as part of that configuration is make sure that each of our data sources have a date stamp of when they last heard from that particular asset. So that can also give me an opportunity to generate reports around, what are the laptops that should be active and assigned to users, but we haven't heard from them in 30 days, 60 days. I want to send somebody out to investigate, were they stolen? Did they break and nobody reported it? What's going on? I need to understand that. So hopefully that answers the question.
Great, thank you. Next one, can the asset data be synced or imported from other sources like SolarWinds, SCCM, etc.?
Yes, it can. And a couple of notes on that. So one, we have a full REST API behind the scenes, so they can programmatically push to assets and update it that way. Secondly, through configuration, we could also pull from them through REST APIs. Thirdly, in terms of pre-built connectors, that is an area that we have a lot of expansion currently going on. So I would advocate, keeping an eye on the marketplace, and you'll see an explosion of new connectors. So part of the reason that is the case is our cloud. I mentioned before that we re-architected the platform specifically for the cloud. That also meant we needed to re-architect how we do plugins. So you will actually see plugins that are now marked as cloud fortified. So this is basically using a platform that we call the Forge for defining new plugins. And it means that a lot of our previous integrations had to be rewritten under Forge to make sure that they were cloud fortified. So that's an ongoing effort both by Atlassian as well as our partners themselves. So we're going to see an explosion there.
Great, thank you. All right, jumping down a couple of quick questions. Is the platform ITIL compliant?
Yes, we are. In fact, we are pink verified as well in, I believe, 7 ITIL practices.
Very good, thank you. And is the product integrated with Active Directory?
Yes, it is. There's a number of potential integration points. There is also a product called Atlassian Access that enables multi-provider single sign-on. So if I've got multiple repositories of user data, it can facilitate single sign-on through all of those. It is available free as part of the Enterprise edition of Jira Service Management, or for a small fee for the Premium edition.
Okay, thank you. Related question, do you have an AD sync with Azure AD, and is mobile client out of box?
AD sync with mobile, it's same essential response on integrated with AD. So yes, definitely doable. Multiple ways. We can also federate through asset as well. The mobile client is out of the box. Yes, essentially you just download it, connect it to, log in with your credentials, and it'll route you to your instance of Jira Service Management. All workflows are available.
Okay. Does Jira host the cloud instance, or can we use our own, such as AWS, Azure, etc.?
That is your choice. So we have we can host it in our cloud, which is what we've been seeing through this demonstration. Then we also have our data center edition, which enables you to implement it wherever you like. In fact, I believe we've got AMIs for AWS and multiple other cloud providers as well. So we can make that as painless as possible.
Very good. Thank you. That brings us to our last question, and it's a little bit involved. It's a show me question. So before I cue this up to Ryan, I wanted to offer to anybody, if you have any outstanding questions, please put those in now. If I don't see any in the next few minutes, we'll conclude our webinar after this final question and answer, but we do have another scheduled 15 minutes. So any questions, enter those now. All right, Ryan, the last question I have is, maybe I missed this part, but how do you build more elaborate processes where a subpart of the process is dealt by different teams, if that's something you're able to show?
Yeah, so a lot of that is going to be through automation, where we can generate multiple types of tickets related to those. Let me see if I can find a good example in here. HR is a common scenario for us for like employee onboarding, for example. So when this ticket was created and we captured all the details, we can see if I scroll down, there's link issues for IT to go, set up their equipment. There's also a ticket for facilities to go set that up as well. A lot of this is defined through the automation. So if I go to my automation rules, I can have that as a multi-tier process. So we can have like automated new employees where in this case, we're looking at imports and then we can create multiple issues. Like in this case, we're creating a HR onboarding issue and we can see that we can pre-fill in most of the fields of that particular ticket. In fact, we've got kind of a macro language to make that easier. And then we can kind of do within these automations, for loops, for example, we can go do lookups within asset data to enrich that as well. So these can be triggered at multiple different points. So I could potentially have, almost a complete self-eating enchilada where at different life cycle, it's creating different sub-activities, whether that's tasks or completely different issues.
Okay, thank you very much. It does look like we had a couple more questions pop up. Is there a list of differences between cloud and on-premise?
There is. You may want to take that as a pull-up. I don't think I have that link directly available, but yes, on our website, you can see differences between the two platforms. And yeah, we can follow up with that particular link.
Okay, David, I will follow up with you on that. The last question I have in queue, so if you have any other questions, last call for questions now. The question is, this person came in late, they're not sure if it was shown already, but is there sorry, a couple of other questions popping in. I got to go find the question again. It floated to the top. Is there an ability
Great
to
to see this
create...
kind of activity.
Yeah, absolutely. Great questions, everybody. You're giving some really good questions for Ryan here. Is there an ability to create custom tables like Cherwell business objects?
Yes. Okay, let me think through this for a second. So the business objects in Cherwell would be like workflows. Like I may create one for HR case would be a common business object. So in those cases, if it's an actual workflow that we want to define, that would be starting with what we call issue types. So that's where we have like incident, problem, change. So we can define as many of those as we want. They can have their own workflows, their own field configurations. So that's one way that we can do it. Now, there was also within Cherwell the table management section where we had just pure lookup data in the system. And for that, we commonly use assets for. So in fact, I've got a schema over here just for practice standards that is lookup data, like what are our standard changes within the system? What are our environments that we're tracking, prod, dev, staging, product security categories. So we often use assets as kind of our table management area within Cherwell. All the data within assets, I can percolate up as dropdowns in an issue, for example, or lookup fields within an issue. So a lot of use for this particular data.
Okay, thank you. And while you were answering that, we had two more pop in, so we'll continue rolling along. From the workflow question, can you make tasks with dependencies where one cannot be started until the completion of one or more other tasks?
Yes. Now, the ideal method would be to chain them so that we don't create the dependent tasks until the top level task has been completed. So as part of its workflow, on completion, we create that subtask just so we don't have users that are inadvertently accessing tickets when they shouldn't. Otherwise, yes, you could also have dependencies. Part of that is how we link those together. So if I go into issues that are linked, and I'm just going to take a random example here. When I link an issue, I can define what is that link relationship. So I can say it's, it depends on, or it's related to, or it's caused by, and I can use that relationship type as part of my masking for dependencies.
Okay, thanks. I think this is a question that's follow on to the previous answer you just provided. Are the different types with different field configurations all stored in the same table in the backend database?
They are, and that kind of facilitates some of our larger analytics, like the plans that we saw earlier. You know, being able to look across multiple projects. That's what facilitates that.
Okay. And the final question I have here is the administrative side accessible in the browser, or is it only accessible in the desktop client similar to Cherwell?
Well, there is no desktop client, so everything is web-based.
Very good. This was a person who popped in a little later for demonstration.
Ah, gotcha. So they missed my joke about let me open up the rich client.
I think so. Yep, I believe so. All right, well, I was conclude us, but we've got one more that popped in. Can you have values that are set to an expression rather than a fixed value from a list? For example, field value equals expression.
Yes, that is a capability. And in fact, I'm trying to think of the best way to demonstrate that. So part of that can actually be done in the over in Insight, for example. So when we're bringing in data, we can actually leverage, I'm trying to find a good example here. I can actually leverage regular expressions when we import that particular data. One other area that we can leverage it, and within my projects, I can also have dynamic forms where I can actually come in and do like a get help personalized kind of form. In here, I can add dynamic fields for a ticket, and I can actually attach multiple forms to a given ticket. And for each of those, I'll do like a short text field. I can have validation that includes a regex pattern for that, if that's what he was asking. So that's another opportunity. The last one is through automation. I can also leverage regex to apply values to particular fields. So maybe concatenate or merge multiple fields into one through a regex expression, if that's what he's looking to achieve.
Very good. Add something to the chat here for one more question that popped in. What are the next steps or contact to have a deeper dive, and are there demo environments available? I'm going to put in my personal email address here. We'd be happy to connect you with Ryan and Rod and team and schedule any follow-on questions, provide you with pricing if you'd like to see what the licensing cost looks like, or discuss potential implementation, what the effort around that may be involved with. So feel free to look at the chat here. I've put my email address in here, and I can connect you with anyone for further conversations, and I'll let Ryan talk about the demo environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one, we're happy to take anybody through a deeper dive. As far as demo environments, what I would actually recommend is you can always go to the Atlassian website and request a free trial of Jira Service Management. And it will come with a sample ITSM project in the system. And if not, you can always come in addition to that sample project, you can also define your own projects. And we can see we've got templates already baked into the system. And actually, I meant to show this earlier in the demonstration. But basically, this all helps you get to an experience faster with some sample data, including things like a service catalog, certain request types, workflows, things like that. So that trial is you're going to get a lot of value out of that. Definitely recommend that. And then we're also happy to spend some time with you during that trial experience if you have questions or specific use cases you're trying to address.
Fantastic. Thank you. Sounds very easy. One other question came up. I'm hoping you can understand the context here, Ryan. The question is, what about math or other types of calculations?
Yes, so there is, and that is through our smart values. And give me one moment, because it's actually pretty powerful. So you can actually do through our smart values, and we saw a little bit of that in our automation, where you basically have curly brackets surrounding variables, essentially. But we support math expressions quite a bit. So those can get fairly complex, multiplication, division, doing percentages greater than equal to. So as we can see on this documentation page, there's quite a few in the platform, as well as logic around conditional statements, date time statements, and more. So yep, definitely doable.
Great, thank you. I think we might have finally run out of questions. These are really good ones.
Wow.
Very good questions, everyone. You gave
Thank
us
you, yeah.
a lot, and I know a lot of people on the call are also have the same questions, so I'm glad you asked those. Again, if you think of questions after we drop today, please feel free to email me. My contact information is in there. We're happy to help you with next steps, or if you just want to do that deeper dive to really compare Cherwell versus GSM, we've got a team of 16 people who've been doing Cherwell the last decade. We're happy to get on a call and talk with you about how the solutions compare and what you can expect, and just help you plan your roadmap and what might be up next. With that, I think we'll be wrapping for the day. Any final thoughts, Rod or Ryan?
No, great job, Ryan. Let us know if any follow-up things come up, Laura. Thank you.
Yeah,
All
thank
right.
you all for your time. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone, and watch for that recording in the next couple of business days after I have a chance to upload it. Have a great rest of your day.